We have a guy that's, I'm pretty sure he's still in the automotive industry. He's some type of engineer, so he's going to tell us how corrupt these companies are.
Do put cheap parts into their cars. They aren't always engineering for, 150,000 mile service life or anything like that. Today we're going to be talking about head gaskets. Now, if you saw my previous video, which is right here, regarding my time at an automaker, I was an automotive engineer for a while. And I worked powertrain, I worked reliability systems. The story in the previous video talked about transmissions and how the automaker was rushing transmissions to market. They needed to make the timeline, so they didn't have these things ready to go on time. So instead of delaying the program, what they did is they made the testing easier so the vehicles would pass the test. These things went out into the field, and for years, you were buying a car with their transmission that was failing just outside of warranty. It was crazy. I mean, it took them a decade to get this thing right. So now today we're going to be talking about head gaskets. I actually just saw recent articles from other engineers on websites like the Autopian that were defending automotive engineering and saying, we're all trying our best. Sometimes we miss a little thing. And that is true sometimes. Sometimes you'll see a car where, obviously like in their design failure mode effects analysis, where they go through a design process of like how a part can fail. Maybe they missed something very key and even testing didn't catch it. And then in the field, these things have a high failure rate. That's true. But most of the time, in my estimation, that's not the case. Most of the time when you have parts that are failing a lot, it's due to a conscious decision by that automaker. And it's not necessarily the engineers. The engineers had a solid fix, and the automaker went with either a cheaper or a lower quality source for these parts. Okay.
All right, we all know why they're doing it. They're doing it so they can, it's for profits. That's all it is. Again, like I said in one of my other videos, if you were to come to America and you were to do the right thing by the people, if you were to do the right thing for the people, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's automotive, yeah, you'll be rich. That's a fact. So the fact that they're doing this on purpose, which we all know this, um, it's sad, man. It really is. So they're trying to hold off Asia, China, because they're coming out with so many electric vehicles, and I'm like not really against electric vehicles, but I'll get an electric car, but I won't get an electric truck. Now that's why I cross the lines. Like, nah, I'm okay with electric car, but a truck, nah. But they're trying to hold off. Well, they're trying to prevent China from coming to America because they have all these awesome cars. They're mostly focused on electric, but they do have non-electric. But right now, they're mostly focused on electric. So, um, not to get him in trouble or I guess myself, the company he's speaking of, it starts with Bob. It rhymes with Bob and it starts with a D. I'm gonna just leave it at that. And that's why I tell people all the time: if you want a reliable car, get you a Toyota, Honda. Can't go wrong with those two. But be very careful because I know the Toyotas they have the what is the X, the top of the line. The Toyota Camrys, the XTE or something. I can't remember, but it's the one with the X in it, and they have like the independent suspension and stuff like that. So you gotta be very careful with those transmissions; they'll blow up on you. Ask me how I know.
This is from a time when I was working in powertrain at one of the automakers here in the Detroit area. So it's one of the domestics. Okay. They had a family of 4-cylinder engines that were out in production for a few years, in their smaller car, mid-size. They were struggling with head gasket problems. These things, they were still using like the old, if you remember like the old head gaskets look like they were these like, they almost look like paper. They were like graphite gaskets with like this little coating, like this greenish coating. And then they just had the rings around each of the cylinders, to keep combustion pressures good. Okay, these were cheap gaskets. They were meant for back like the iron block days, when you had iron block, iron head, low compression, low engine speeds, temperatures were generally low back then. Okay, they were not designed for, aluminum block to iron heads, which is what everybody was using in the 90s. Even when you went aluminum cylinder block and an aluminum head, these don't really do that well. But nevertheless, this automaker wanted to keep going with these gaskets because they cost $1.25 less per engine than the newest tech that was available at the time, which is a multi-layer steel gasket. They're called MLS. MLS, every engine now uses MLS gaskets. Okay, it's a multi-layer stainless steel gasket, perfect sealing. You know, like you normally have like a flat layer of stainless steel, and then the upper and lower have like slight ribbing on them. And then, you know, there's like different polymers to make sure you get a perfect seal. Like, you know, you see nowadays, I mean, head gasket failures are relatively rare. Anyway, this automaker, their 4-cylinder engines, head gasket failures were very common, especially on the larger of the 4-cylinder engines. There's a family of them. I mean, I'm talking, you know, more than 50, 60% failure rate by 60,000 miles. I mean, that's catastrophic. So this automaker spent years trying to develop fixes for the cylinder head and the block design. And, you know, they were trying testing. They spent a lot of time and money on this, trying to get around having to spend this extra $1.25 for the upgraded MLS gasket. It was something to see. In the meanwhile, years of engines were built with this cheap gasket that would fail on you. You know, I never understood the rationale behind this. Yeah, you look good for, you know, a couple quarters there because you're saving $1.25 per engine, you know, hundreds of thousands of engines every year. But at the end of the day, you're losing so many customers, right? Imagine you bought this car, or maybe you did buy one of these cars. I don't want to mention the automaker, but imagine you did buy one of these cars.
All right, told you, man. If you can't figure it out, you know that's on you. But you know it rhymes with Bob and it starts with a D. So that's why they're trying to keep China from bringing their their companies over here because they have a lot of options in China, and I'm gonna say this too: they're better quality and they're a better price. So I guess a car here in America is like what I don't know. I don't know, but I know like 50,000 is pretty common for a vehicle. That's not even talking about like a Lexus or a BMW. That's just for a regular standard vehicle like a Dodge or something like that. So, um, I don't know about the longevity, right? But as far as the quality is there, and then the price is there as well. So, you know, you get you a brand new car over here for like 50,000, you know, and then you get a car that's made in China, one of their brands, you'll get a better quality vehicle for 20K less. I watched plenty of review videos. Rich Rebuilds is one of them, and he has quite a bit of videos of Chinese manufacturers, and he's test driving them and stuff like that. They're nice, man. They're nice. So me, like I said, I'm not really a big fan of EV. I'm more comfortable with a combustible engine. So, but I know right now they're just real big on EVs. But I would like to see how their combustible engines are vehicles are. I would love to get something like that. So, but I heard that they're planning to. Well, I don't know if they're starting on it or what, but they're planning on building a facility in Mexico. That way they can, you know, they can beat the tariff and stuff like that because they're getting killed by the tariff. So they're trying to, well, they're getting their butt. I don't want to say the K word. They're getting their butt kicked by the tariffs. But so for them, their way of combating that, they're going to actually set up a shop in Mexico. So
And the engine went just out of warranty. And, you know, the automaker's like, well, that's too bad for you. You know, I'm sorry, it's out of warranty, you know. I had seen cases where it would fail just past warranty and then another 40,000 miles later fail again. So within 100,000 miles, some of these people were on their third head gaskets. Okay, that's ridiculous. I never understood the short-term thinking on this. You know, you want to know the reason why a car like Toyotas last so long? Because they historically haven't made decisions like this. They've usually gone the other way. If they think there's a part that's going to cost more, but it's definitely going to last the life of the car, they do that. I mean, I don't know. Recent example from some even like family cars we had around here. Toyota timing belts back when they had them. You're supposed to replace them, you know, between 60,000 and 100,000 miles, depending on the automaker. Toyotas, I mean, you can go 20 years and 200,000 miles on them, and most of the time they wouldn't break. Most of the domestic and German automakers, you couldn't go more than, you know, 10,000 miles beyond the number that the manufacturer gave you because for
yeah, and that being said, a lot of these parts, especially inside of the engine, they're made out of plastic, not even durable plastic, like cheap plastic. So me, I know damn well they can make an actual part, an engine part, um, you know, made out of some kind of steel or whatever like that. So when I start watching some of these mechanic videos, and then they're pulling out plastic pieces that's brittle and that broke off. I'm like, bro, this is a Audi, this is a BMW. What the hell? But I know like BMW, Audi, they get so many different. I'm pretty sure it's for most of the manufacturers. They literally get parts from all over the country, from from other manufacturers for them to cut costs. I guess. Well, actually, for them to cut costs, but um, yeah, like the BMW and the Audis, I'm like, they look nice, but they ain't worth a spit. Especially like the Land and Range Rovers. Now, the old school ones, they're still running to this day. I see them on the freeway almost all the time. The old school, I guess they call them, the Land Rover. You know, like the one you see like in the Outback when they out there in safari and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of people on the safari they still use them same Land Rovers, but I mean, as far as the ones they're coming out with now, they just pieces of junk. So I wouldn't even waste my money on that.
Certain they would break. Anyway, I have other stories like this. I thought you guys would find this interesting. And again, like I said, this is kind of my rebuttal to some of the articles I've been seeing, where auto engineers from other companies are trying to defend the automakers, saying, well, we're trying our best. Sometimes small mistakes were made. I understand that is part of it. But most of the time, there's some cost-cutting decision. There's some budgetary decision why they go with the cheaper part. Because at the end of the day, something out of warranty really doesn't short-term cost the automaker anything. It costs you.
Yeah.
Long-term, yeah, they'll lose customers, but obviously they don't seem to think like that, right? Public companies seem to think quarter to quarter. How do I become profitable or more profitable next quarter? Anyway, like and subscribe this video, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, so the guy's spot on. He's saying he don't know why, but it's simply because they just screwing over the customer. And on top of that, I remember these warranties, man. They used to be 100,000 miles, 90,000 miles. Like these warranties now they're like 30 or 60,000, and you gotta be very careful what kind of warranty you get because it's either gonna cover major parts or it won't. So just make sure you read over those warranty plans. And if anything, get extended warranty. I'll say go ahead and go for it. Get a bumper to bumper. I think they probably go up to like 150, 180 or something like that. So, get an extended warranty. That would be cool for you to do. That's a good investment. But yeah, I mean, I think Kia they have like 100,000 miles. Somebody I went to a dealership and talked to one of the managers there that was in the shop, and he was like, "Yeah, we have like I'm pretty sure he said like 120 or something. It's definitely 100K." Because I'm like, it's been so long since I heard that before. And normally it used to be Honda, Toyota used to be throwing them kind of warranties out. Now it's like, yeah, you get like 60K or something like that. And that's a wrap. So, and then you'll be forced to get an extended warranty on top of that. Extended warranty, they don't always uh, like cover everything. So they'll pay like a portion, and then now you're in a pickle. So the dealer will come to you and be like, hey man, your warranty only cover X amount on this repair. Do you want to pay the rest? If not, we won't be able to do it. So, and then I heard also with like when vehicles have a common issue and they do a recall, I picked up one guy. They didn't even honor it. They kept jacking him around, and he's like, okay, man. He went back so many times to the point where he was like, all right, how much it gonna cost to fix it, man? I'm just trying to get it fixed, and so I can get back on the road. So yeah, it's some shady. It's a lot of shady stuff going on. But I know the extended warranty. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'll say this is best to have it than not have it, because I'd rather be like, okay, well, they'll cover like 75% of the repair, and then I'll pay the 20. I'm cool with that instead of me have to pay for it out of pocket, because even their warranty is not always up to par of that dealership warranty. So it's one of them things that makes you do your research. And me personally, just talk to the actual the people that's in the shops. Who's ever at the counter, whoever handles the extended warranty. Talk to them, and they'll tell you which ones is good and which ones are bad, and then you go from there. But it's best to have extended warranty, especially nowadays, man. You don't want to be dealing with all those high costs. But yeah, if anything, at least they can pay a majority of it. If you got to pay some of it, instead of you paying all the price. So if you have a vehicle, let me know how many miles you have on there, and or what's the most amount of miles you ever put on any vehicle you ever had. And yeah, if you guys like the video, make sure you like, share, subscribe. You can donate something to my cash app. I really appreciate you. And yeah, until next time.